back to Left Bench Sports. This week, all players reported to spring training. Half went to Florida and half went to Arizona. With the season a little over a month away, let's recap the offseason. Well, we had a big trade a couple weeks ago. The Orioles made a trade to send pitching prospect D.L. Hall and 25-year-old infielder Joey Ortiz to the Brewers for Corbin Burnes. Luke, what are your thoughts on this trade as a fellow AL East fan?
Well, I mean, they didn't give up that much. So he's a great pitcher. It's terrible that he's going in our division now. And, I mean, it sounded like the Yankees were actually all in on him, and then it seems like the Brewers just want more for us. I mean, they want Spencer Jones. He's our top prospect. He's one of the best prospects in baseball. And the Orioles didn't give up any of their top guys. So, yeah, it's a good thing the Yankees didn't make the deal, I think, because I didn't want to give up Spencer Jones for him. But it's not great that he's in our division now, as they have 2 years of control left with him. And, yeah, he should be good for them.
Yeah, that's the one problem. I mean, the Orioles weren't that great pitching-wise last year, and now they have their ace, so that's very scary for both of us in the AL East. The Orioles might just finish with the best record in baseball. I wouldn't be surprised if they're better than the Dodgers, but they still have so much young talent. They still have plenty of prospects to trade. D.L. Hall, going back to the Brewers, he's a pretty good pitcher. He was a lefty. Throws a good curveball, good slider. But in his short time with the majors, I think he had a 3.46 ERA. But the other prospect they got, Joey Ortiz, I think is very good. Even though he's 25, he's a little old to be, just establishing himself in the majors. But I think it was a fair trade for both teams, really. I mean, the Brewers got what they wanted, and the Orioles, unfortunately, got what they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, the Orioles are going to be really good this year. Grayson Rodriguez was one of the top prospects in baseball a couple of years ago. He wasn't great last year, but he'll get better. He's still young. And then they got the top prospect in baseball this year, Jackson Holliday. He's supposed to be great, and he's going to come up and be one of their guys this year.
Yeah, so we could easily see him replacing them with Jorge Mateo, their starting shortstop. I don't know if he'll even make it to the trade deadline at that point. I could see Holliday easily taking over the job.
Yeah, so with spring training right around the corner, what surprised you the most this offseason?
Easily the Royals' willingness to spend. I mean, they signed Hunter Renfroe, Michael Wacha. They traded for John Schreiber, and possibly the biggest non-Dodger move of the offseason. They got extended Bobby Witt Jr. for 11 years, $288 million to make him a Royal for basically for life. I mean, that's really great stuff for the Royals. They've been terrible since, 2015. And in a weak AL Central, I think they could easily take the division. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, but it would definitely be a great step for that team. And what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Bobby Witt, it's the biggest contract in Royals history. They paid him the most money, so it's huge for them. Big contract. It's not the biggest thing that's happened because Juan Soto got traded this offseason to the Yankees. I think you forgot about that. And yeah, so Bobby Witt's a huge deal, though, and I think the Royals definitely could win that division. But what surprised me the most was the Dodgers spending money on everyone. I mean, they got away with signing Shohei, which they're not really paying him much because they just deferred his entire contract. They got Yamamoto, the other Japanese phenom pitcher, coming over, and Teoscar Hernandez, who's another solid outfielder. And on paper, they definitely have the best team in baseball. So is this bad for the sport that they got to spend all this money?
Yeah, I mean, what's worse for the sport is the A's not spending money, but the Dodgers spending all this money certainly is okay, now we have a clear front runner in the sport, which we haven't had really since I don't even know when, but now the Dodgers are really separating themselves, at least on paper, with the rest of the MLB, and I think that's really going to continue. Whatever prospects they have left, they're not going to even come up this season. They could easily trade them away at the deadline for a reliever. It's the one question I have about them is their bullpen. They have Blake Trinan coming off, Tommy John, and that's really it. They have Bruce Dark-Gratterall. He throws 103, but that's really it. That's the one question I have for them. But overall, it was a good spring training.
Yeah. Well, there's still a bunch of free agents left available. So there's Cody Bellinger, Blake Snell, and Jordan Montgomery. All three of them have pretty good resumes to go back to. Bellinger won like MVP a couple years ago, and they had a comeback year last year. Snell won Cy Young last year, and Montgomery is great for the Rangers in their World Series run. So, do you have any idea why those guys haven't signed yet and we're now into spring training?
I mean, one man is the reason why they haven't signed, and that's Scott Boras. He is just holding off on signing with any team. He basically controls free agency at this point every year. We've seen it. I think he represents Soto. Nobody signs an extension if you're a client of Scott Boras. I mean, he might be the most powerful man in baseball, considering player movement and everything. It's just crazy to me how they let one man just control the pace of free agency. And it's like in the NBA, you have like a week and everybody signs. And now for MLB, we have to drag it out for basically a whole winter. It's just not good for the game.
Yeah, I think it's terrible for the sport that these guys are waiting until, it's almost the regular season, and then they decide to sign, and then they have to build their way up. And he's just doing it to get the most possible money. But I'm not even sure if that works out, because they had a lot more offers for these guys a couple months ago when Yamamoto hadn't signed yet and Stroman hadn't signed yet, and all these guys were still there. And now it's like he has a couple teams, and now he's just waiting for them to go back to that bigger deal. And they're going to keep holding on until they get their money.
Yeah, they kind of shot themselves in the foot, to be honest. I mean, Montgomery had a huge market, so did Matt Chapman, and now it just doesn't really seem like there's much of a market left for him. Obviously, Bellinger, he's a great player. He'll find a deal somewhere, but I don't know if he'll get the deal that he wants. He could have gotten like a 5-year deal. Now he might only have to settle for another 1-year deal with the Cubs.
Yeah, I agree. That's all we have for you on Left Bench Sports this week, and we'll see you back next week.
Hello and welcome back to Left Bench. I have college basketball for you now, and we will also be talking about baseball. I've got a lot more coverage to share with you today. Let's get right into it. Right now, we have a good look at what the seeds are going to be looking like heading into March. It's right around the corner, and I can't wait. I'm going to give you my predictions for the first 4 seeds in this segment, as well as early March predictions. Starting out, you could see it right here. This is who I think will be the number 4 seeds. It's going to be relatively the same picks as the selection committee. A lot of these are easy or no-brainers. First 4 for the 1 seeds, UConn, Houston, Purdue, and Arizona. I usually don't feel too strong about Arizona, but they have a bit of an easier schedule in the Pac-12, and they're playing well. I don't see a reason why they won't get a 1 seed. What I do see, though, is definitely an upset brewing in March. I could call it now. Arizona's just one of those teams who I think is really prone to upsets, so don't be surprised by, maybe a second-round upset. Now, here are my 2 seeds. In the East region, Kansas is a no-brainer. Let's look at the Northwest. I actually have Iowa State. It could be UNC, but I think Iowa State really is legit right now. They're second in the Big 12, and I expect them to win out, as well as make the Big 12 championship. Marquette will also be an easy pick for a 2 seed over in the West region. And in the South, it will probably go between Tennessee and Duke, but I'll go with Tennessee. It's a pretty easy pick because they'll most likely finish first in the SEC if they win out and Bama loses a few more games. The 3 seeds now, I'll take Bama. I mean, Alabama's offense is amazing, and they're a better team right now than everyone else in that region. North Carolina should be a 3 in the Midwest, and then I'll take Baylor and Duke in the other 2. Like I said, Duke could be in a battle with Tennessee for number 2, but it depends on if they keep winning the rest of the season. And in my opinion, they have a really great chance to take the ACC championship. Last, here are the 4 seeds that I got. Illinois, Auburn. Those are pretty clear picks in their regions. Then in the West, I think it could be either San Diego State or maybe even South Carolina. Wisconsin kind of booted their way out of this conversation. I mean, they've fallen off hard recently, but I think San Diego State will take the 4 seed. We saw some 2 bad losses from South Carolina. I still think they're a really good team, underrated, but I think San Diego State will come away with the 4 seed. They should continue to win in the Mountain West. Last in the South, I think Creighton will get the 4 seed. Coming off a huge win against number 1 in the country, UConn. I expect them to finish the season off strong, and they'll definitely be a dangerous team in March. But that's probably what it'll be looking like in March. Don't go anywhere. In a minute, we're going to take a look at the AP poll for this week and some hot teams right after this quick break. Welcome back. Right here is the new rankings for the week. A little surprise for some people as Houston moves up over Purdue. Not for me. I think this is obvious. It's definitely the obvious thing to do. Houston looks amazing. Taking a look back at Houston versus Iowa State just a few days ago, Houston earned a big one. This was a great game in the Big 12. The best two teams in the Big 12 going at it, and as much as Houston proves themselves with a big win, I don't think Iowa State, on the other hand, should be disappointed. They played a great game against the second best team in the country on the road, and they're definitely legit come March Madness time. Moving on now, I want to talk about two teams, Duke and UNC, the two rivals. A few weeks ago, we got to see them match up over in Chapel Hill, and UNC controlled the game right until the end. At this point, they were looking hot and looking like the third best team in the nation, while Duke wasn't necessarily doing bad, but I think they were kind of still trying to reach their full potential and sort of figure things out. As time has went on, I think the roles have been reversed. UNC has lost 2 of 4 games since the Duke game, and then 1 to Clemson, who's a very good team in my opinion. I think they should win a few ones in March, and then obviously you're always bound to lose a few conference games. They blew another one now to Syracuse, so they moved down to 10. And Duke, on the other hand, is on a 5-game winning streak, just beat by Miami by 30. And, I think what stands out the most to me is the guard play, mainly between Jeremy Roach and Jared McCain. They've been extremely impressive. Versus Florida State on Saturday, McCain had 25 in the first half and finished with 35, a career high. 8 threes, too. He's just continuing to get better and better. And throughout the season, I've been saying this for a while, I think his play is having and will have a huge effect on their success in March. Now I'm just really interested to see the next Duke and UNC matchup. This time it'll be in Cameron, and I think it could definitely be a different outcome. Say Duke wins, though, I think they will most likely get the 1 seed in the ACC tournament. And heading into March, they could possibly fight for that 2 seed spot with Tennessee. Now I quickly want to move to the end of the top 25. We have teams like Washington State making their way in the rankings. They're placed at 21. Also, Florida's placed at 24. 2 teams who very much deserve these rankings, especially Florida, in my opinion. We've seen them be the center of a few upset losses, and they will definitely be a dangerous team in March. I'm saying that very confidently. Florida will be a dangerous team. They just took a loss to Alabama last night, but in my opinion, the way they played on the road against one of the top offensive teams in their league just proves how good they are. They made it a really good team in OT, and I think they're just another team who has a really high ceiling in March. Just the way that the guards were able to create shots consistently impressed me. And, even after this loss, I hope they stay in the top 25 because I think they'll continue to do damage in the SEC. And also, the SEC tournament will come along. They should make it pretty far in that. Washington State as well. Not too much to say. They've been really impressive. 7 wins in a row. They beat Arizona earlier this season, so this could potentially be another sleeper team. But moving on, to wrap it up, as always, I'm going to give you my top 15 teams. And to be honest, I don't think there's much to change from the AP poll. Right here, you could see the whole top 10 for me relatively the same. For Duke, 1 spot over Marquette. That's the only thing I changed there. And then even though after a big loss against UConn, Marquette's still a very good team. I think they have a high ceiling in March. Speaking of UConn, I don't think they will budge even after the loss to Creighton. In my opinion, they're still the clear number 1 team. Now, for number 11, I actually have Creighton. They just really proved how good they can be against Utah. That's if they're able to spread the floor and consistently hit shots like they did this game. Number 12, I put Baylor, and then 13, Alabama. 14, I'll keep Auburn right there, and I think Illinois, I'll move back there to number 15. Those are my rankings for this week. A lot of exciting basketball up and coming, but with that being said, that's all I got for you. Don't go anywhere. Luke and Myles will be talking about baseball next.